Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I interview top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures for businesses so they can grow and scale. And today's guest is Jamey Schrier. Hi, Jamey.
Hi, Eddie. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome. And I am so excited to interview you today because you are totally an entrepreneur that has done that. You scaled your business. You are going to tell us your story, but not only did you scale the business and achieve the freedom, you're actually helping others achieve the same thing. You know, you are, and I'm going to read your bio. So you are a bestselling author. You are a speaker. You're the CEO of Practice Freedom U, where you basically teach physical therapists, because you are a physical therapist, so that's your background. But you're teaching physical therapists and chiropractors how to achieve that freedom, right? Not be a slave to the practice, but actually use the practice and achieve the freedom that you want and help others, because that's what you do as a physical therapist, as a chiropractor. You help many people, but by basically doing what you did, you are able to help many more patients, but also have the lifestyle and the freedom that you deserve and you want.
Exactly. I feel that I'm kind of in a unique position, and again, I'll share my story in a moment, but I'm in a unique position of, I just didn't read a book. I didn't go on the weekend and take a course. I lived it. I lived what it's like to go from, struggle, to go from just a lot of things that, many of us feel, private practice owners feel, especially nowadays and the way the world is with all the challenges. And then actually not only creating a business that served me, because I believe your business should serve your life should not serve your business. So I created a business that transformed that into something that served my life and gave me the things I want, and then began, unknowingly, unsuspectedly, just helping other people in the same world. We're in the smart profession. We go to school, we graduate from school, and we are the business. We are our craft. Whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a physical therapist or in the mental health field, whatever the field is, if you're that smart profession, it is so difficult to learn that craft and all of a sudden create a business, and then you have to become the business owner of that craft. So just a completely unique way of seeing things. And it's something that, fortunately, I had the experience of going through, although at the time it wasn't the most fun.
Absolutely. I understand that. And we're going to go over your journey for sure. But I thought, before we start, let's give a shout out on how we met, which I think it's kind of a funny story. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to Eric Miller, who I just interviewed for my podcast. And he actually shared his unique way of helping practice owners or business owners to handle their finances. And he has a whole process that he shared with us, which I thought was fascinating. And I actually wrote a blog about it as well to share with our listeners and our readers. But it turns out that you actually never spoke to Eric. So Eric, if you're listening to
not in person. We it's funny. We ran in the same circles. I've seen him at different conferences and stuff, and we've talked like through messaging or something, but we've never actually got together. But I saw him on your podcast, and I heard about it, and I reached out. So yeah. Shout out to Eric. Hope Eric goes out. Maybe we'll actually have met in person. I think that'd be great.
All right. Well, that's a great way of introducing you to right now via this podcast. But yes. Okay, good. Well, let's start with your story. So you mentioned the struggles at the beginning, right? The struggles that many business owners run into, like whether they're in the trades and maybe they are the plumber or I just got off the phone with one of my clients who is a plumber and says, well, I'm a plumber, I'm a technician. Never ran a business. I don't know how to run a business, right? So that's, as an example, it doesn't have to be just a practitioner in the healthcare. Of course, it can be a dentist, an optometrist, a PT, a physical therapist. Whoever you are, that you actually really good in the trade that you got trained in, but now you decided to open your business, which is a very admirable thing to do, but you don't know how to run that business, right? That's what you're running into. So tell us your story. How did you start your business? What made you want to start a business and what happened?
Yeah, my story starts actually when I was 12 years old. So I remember going with my dad, who we didn't talk about the word entrepreneur at the time, but I guess he was an entrepreneur. My definition of an entrepreneur isn't necessarily Elon Musk or Zuckerberg. You don't have to be someone that's a billionaire. An entrepreneur is somebody that is taking 100% of the financial responsibility for your livelihood. So, my dad, I guess, was an entrepreneur. He actually had what was called a diet food store. He actually was in health and nutrition before it was actually vogue to be in health and nutrition. So I remember going with him and really loving it. And years later, when I went to physical therapy school and got out, I just knew I was going to go into business at some point. I just kind of had that bug, probably from growing up and going with my dad. So, a few years bouncing around different places, I finally got up the courage, mustered up the confidence and the courage that all of us at some point do. And I want to be a business owner. And so I ended up doing that. And I'll tell you, the first year and a half was the greatest in my life. My wife now, Colleen, she was my fiance at the time. She was the front desk person. I was, the doctor, and then we had an administrative person helping me, and it was great. Like, her and I, we got along, and man, life could be better. I wasn't necessarily making, a ton of money yet, but people started to come in. They say, "Oh my God, this is great. You're the best." And I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I was meant to do. Forget working for someone else. There's just no way I could do it. And then that honeymoon period, so to speak, started to wax and wane a little bit, because as we started to grow and people started to come in, I needed help. At the same time, my wife and I got married, so she was focused on, creating a wedding versus running my front desk. And then we started having kids a couple of years later. So as we started hiring people, Eddie, I made the mistake of assuming people thought like I did, acted like I did, communicated like I did. I just assumed people show up on time. I just assume that you'll just do what's right for the patient or the client or whatever. And I started to realize that people don't. People just have their way of operating, not good or not bad. It was just different than what I was used to. And that started causing some angst within me. So over the next couple of years, 2-3 years after that initial everything is great period, the angst really started coming when I started hiring. And, and people say they don't understand business, right? I never understood the business. I was just really good at what I did. I was good at the craft. If you mentioned a plumber, I've spoken to a lot of kind of tradespeople. You're good at what you do, and you wanted to own a business because, frankly, you just didn't want to work for someone else. You wanted to do it your way. There's no difference in being a physical therapist or chiro or a mental health specialist, psychologist. You're really good at what you do, and you want to do it on your own. So, you're kind of in this world of, if I'm really good at my craft, people will recognize that and just come, and things will be great. And that's the big mistake. That's the mistake that I made. And it took me a long time, but what happened is I started to try to just work harder, It's the only thing I knew how to do is just work more hours. So not only was I hiring people to try to take over some things I didn't want to do, such as some of the administrative stuff, some of the, I hired a bookkeeper to help me with bookkeeping, and I hired, a front desk manager. I started to hire other therapists. And I didn't really have any systems in place. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. I didn't have any clear expectations. I didn't have a clear vision that I could relate to them. I didn't have, I had personal values, but I didn't make it a big deal. I read the books. Yeah, you put your values together, but I didn't really create values in the same sense of my company was living by the values we were creating. I would just basically say, this is our values, or I'd have a piece of paper going, hey, here's our values, but it wasn't aligned with who we really were. So what happened is as we started to grow and hire people would then get, unhappy, they would leave, or I would be unhappy with them and let them go. And it wasn't until I was sitting at a bar having a drink with one of my neighbors, and he jokingly says to me, he goes, Jamey, who'd you fire this week? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, who'd I fire? And he goes, well, every time I talk to you, either someone quit or you fired somebody or you're hiring someone. And I went, really? Didn't even know that. So I started looking back over the last year, 12 months, and I hired or fired 25 people in 12 months. Addie, my business was only 6 people. I had 4 times the staff come and go. I don't have to tell you that doesn't do well for culture. Mm-hmm. That doesn't do well for productivity. And I was working 70 hours a week. I was working weekends. I had a newborn. I had another son who was, I remember the story that, he was 5 years old, just started soccer. And I told my wife I'd go to the clinic real quick just to do some notes, check on some things as we do, open up the mail. And I said, I'll be there in a couple hours. Totally missed his first soccer game ever because I just got caught up in doing stuff. So, those were some of the big problems that I started going through, and it was affecting my family. It was affecting my relationship with my wife. We argued a lot around money. I never felt I was in a good place. I finally just said, okay, let's go away for a nice getaway weekend, because we couldn't take off. Even for my honeymoon. My honeymoon was designed around July 4th weekend because it was during the week and I would only miss 3 days of work. I literally put my honeymoon, my one-time honeymoon, around my work schedule. That is not having your business support your life. That is literally moving your life around your business. And I don't necessarily have regrets, but I would have done things differently. And then, so I go away for this getaway weekend. And on my way back, I'm feeling a little bit more relaxed. And my wife is in the front seat. She's smiling. We get a phone call, and it's my father-in-law. And my wife's smile turns into a blank stare. And I'm like, what happened? She goes, your building is on fire. And I'm like, what? He goes, my dad just said he saw your building. It's on TV. It's on fire. And without missing a beat, this is how bad things were. I said, good. I hope it burns down, because I wanted a break. It was like a snow day. We pulled up on a Sunday, fall, October 14th, beautiful fall day. Whole place is up in flames, and I'm kind of going around feeling relieved. And people are like, "What are you going to do?" I go, "Well, I'm not going to work on Monday, so isn't that pretty good news?" So that's how bad things were.
Wow. Okay, so that's the bottom, right? So the building did burn down.
Building burned down.
Then what did you do?
Well, I didn't go to work. So I lost all my clients. I kind of went up and down emotionally. I tried to stay in a positive place, but I didn't feel that way. I started to look at whether I wanted to stay, not just in business, in the actual world of physical therapy, because I was ready to let go of the whole thing. Because my thought was, the reason this is so hard because of it's physical therapy. And I had so many friends in other professions making a bunch of money and loving it. I had people in the mortgage industry, in the real estate industry. I'm like, I went to school. I got multiple six figures in debt. I sacrificed my butt, and you're making all this money and I'm dying here. So I started to question whether or not I want to stay in the field. And I finally, after weeks and weeks of kind of going back and forth and doing some soul searching, I said, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I looked in the mirror and I said, you're the reason why all this happened. Not necessarily the fire, but you're the reason why you were so miserable. So I had to take that honest look. I had the Michael Jackson man in the mirror. And I said, I am going to do everything I can. And I got a very clear vision of what I wanted. I wanted a business that could operate day to day, take care of patients, answer the phone, collect the money without me doing all of that. And people said I couldn't do it. They said referral sources won't refer to you. Your staff will not respect you. Who are you going to be if you're not the physical therapist working in the clinic? And that just motivated me even more to say, you know what? I'll do one of two things. I'll prove you wrong or I'll die trying. But I will never give up. It's just in my DNA. And I will work whatever I have to do. So that was really the turning point when I opened up 4 months later. I opened up with the mindset of, I need help. Because I never really asked for help before. I had a big ego. I'm smart. Got a lot of A's in school. And now I'm putting my tail between my legs and saying, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So got help. I mean, no, not help necessarily from staff, but help on how to manage the practice, right?
Yeah. I started looking at programs. I upped the number of books I was reading. I hired coaches. I never hired a coach. You see, my thought was coaching is weakness. When you get help, it's weakness. Even though I'm an athlete, grew up an athlete my whole life, I've had coaches my whole life. I wasn't weak because I had a coach guiding me, but somehow when it's your business and you're this very smart, proud person, that it's like cheating if someone helps you. That was the mindset I had to get over. So when I started investing money, which was a big deal because I got some money issues and some money blocks, I was investing money, helping them guide me to get over my own shortcomings that I wasn't even aware of. So it took a long time because I was a slow learner and I was kind of resistant to change, even though I wanted to do it. But it took me a long time. But then I started seeing some positive results and I realized this was the funniest thing in the world. I say funny as in it was just the most ironic thing. As I began to do less, when I mean less in the business, because I was doing everything, right? Even when I hired someone. When you hire someone, they have their job and your job. So I'm doing everyone's job a little bit and my own. When I really started to delegate, to really allow someone to do it, and obviously making sure that there are some things in place so they did it well, my time opened up, my energy went up, my stress went down, and the business did better. Nobody ever said that was going to happen. I read a book that said it was going to happen, but no one I knew said, Jamey, the secret actually isn't to work 70 hours a week. The secret is actually to work less, but to work very focused on what you do really well. And when I started to experience that, I was like, oh my God. And all of a sudden that started the curve, the hockey stick from going, down or even to start going up. And I just started looking for, what can I remove off my plate? Who can help me do this? What do I need to do to become better at engaging with people, communicating with people, and giving people things they need so they can do well? how can I become a more appreciative, grateful person? Because I was a sarcastic asshole. That's how I was showing up in the world. And I didn't even see that. But after 25 people coming or going, it was pretty evident that I wasn't the leader that I thought I was. So
that's quite a story. So I have to stop you here because I have so many questions. So
yes.
First of all, thank you for sharing that story, because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs are actually relating to it. I mean, you had to hit bottom in order for you to basically figure out that you need to do something else, right? But as a word to the entrepreneurs that listen to us right now, to the business owners, you don't have to hit that bottom. Or maybe you did and you want an inspiration. But your story is definitely very compelling and something that people can identify with. And I heard it from many entrepreneurs, exactly what you were just saying, in terms of like really find your point of genius, your area of genius, the area that you are the best at, the area that you are of value, and then delegate the rest, delegate the repetitive, delegate the things that are maybe challenging to you. I recorded a podcast with Jeff Hunter who went over that matrix of value. What is of value? What is repetitive? What is challenging? What is neglected? I interviewed Ari Meisel from Less Doing, and that's exactly, that's the name of his business, is Less Doing. So it's not that you're now not going to do anything, but don't do those things that you do not need to do. Get the freedom that you need in order for you to be able to function and be the leader, right? I just interviewed actually last week Michelle Haken, and she also mentioned the same thing. That's how she grew her business. So I'm just putting some names of people that I interviewed for my podcast, and I'm included in the show notes because it is a common denominator, right? So now my question to you is, if you could have gone back in time, right, when you started your practice, and let's say you had the humbleness and the willingness, because you're right, and the first thing is the willingness to learn, right? It's the willingness to know that you don't know, realize that, and then learn. So let's say you had that. What would you advise yourself at that time? How would you actually structure and build the business or the practice correctly so you wouldn't hit that burnout? I guess it's so literal, right? When you hit burnout, like it's actually you hit burnout. It's not like just got burned out, but it's literal.
Yeah. No, great question. And those are some big ifs. It is difficult to let go. That's always the thing I keep hearing from so many other business owners, is letting go. And that was my issue, was letting go. Letting go is around trust. But if I was willing to let go, if I had that level of trust, and I was really looking more of what to do and how we're doing, my first hire back then would have been a business coach. I would have interviewed and connected with people that were able to guide me and help me along the way, because that would have, looking back, that would have saved me years and millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars and years off my life. And that also would have helped me. It would help me get over, because many of us have these money issues, these money blocks. It would have helped me get over the fact that this is an investment in me. And this mindset of I can do it myself, like this is some Home Depot commercial, that's broken thinking. And I had a lot of broken thinking. And a lot of that broken thinking was how I grew up in some of the formative years, and my parents, which I share in my book and stuff, and the things I've learned, and my professors and what they said. Good meaning. They just didn't serve me in this moment. So I would have hired someone to help me with that. And then in my business, I would have hired on the top down. Most people hire the bottom up. Their first hire is a part-time front desk person or an aide. I would have hired my clinical director first. I would have hired that person that I could begin to train and help with all the stuff I know to start putting the infrastructure in place with the business without necessarily me in there. Or, I would have initially worked and done my thing, but then once I generated cash flow, that next therapist I brought on wouldn't have been Jamey as the clinical director and that person as a staff therapist. I would have brought in the clinical director initially. And that would have set me on a different path to do what I love to do. And frankly, what I have to do as the business owner. We're the influencers. We're the connectors. We have to be out there. No one's going to share and connect with people like we are about our business. But the excuse I hear, which is a valid one, is I'm too busy in the business. Exactly. So that means no one's outside doing any of the work. No one's building relationship, looking for opportunities, looking at the times ahead. We're all reactive of all that. So, but there's other talented people that can do the work. And here's the other thing too. Just because you don't like something, just because it's not in your DNA, doesn't mean it's not in someone else's. I never recommend delegating or moving something off of your plate and abdicating it to somebody else that hates it also, because that's a recipe for disaster. So if you're out there right now listening to this and you're like, yeah, but Jamey, I've tried to delegate that and it was worse. Chances are you delegated to a person that wasn't in their zone. Delegate it to a person that loves that stuff and that you provide a way to make them successful. That's really our job, is we have to create a place of success for people and create those systems and the training and the metrics and the clarity so they can be successful. Again, that's a mindset shift that if I was open to it, that coach certainly would have helped me with in the beginning.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. It starts like with the webinars that I do and the seminars. I always say it's the mindset. You have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to understand that you have to let go and implement the systems, etc. But in terms of just the system, I mean, of course, let's say you have that mindset, right? You figured out that you're willing, you see that you need. What other systems would you recommend that have to be in place in order for the practice to be successful or for a business to be successful?
Yeah, there's 3 areas any business has, and there's marketing, management, money. Then, of course, the fourth one is mindset, which is the most important. So, from a marketing and management and money standpoint, without clients, you don't have anything. So understanding, how do we put in a marketing plan? How do we put in a content strategy plan? So what I started to realize is marketing and management, they're not really different from one another. They're just different SOPs, standard operating procedures. So understanding the idea of putting in a system, putting in a process, what that actually means. And then, of course, like you said before, looking for opportunities. How do you create something in a way that, someone answers the phone a lot. So that's something that can be done in a very similar way by whoever's doing it. So that takes a perspective of understanding how to do it. So looking at it from a marketing standpoint, most small business owners, I focus all on relationships. This is all about relationships, authentic, genuine relationships. And when you're able to put time, focused time, and you can put that into a process, then you can start building referral sources and your referral network with people that can refer you more than one person. So you look for influencers out there, and those influencers, when you generate relationships, can begin to refer you people. And yes, you can then focus on some other digital marketing strategies, but most people don't have the type of money that you really need to put in, the Facebook advertising or the Google ads or something like that. So the relationships, especially in markets where it's word of mouth, which in the business that I'm in, this healthcare business, people ask, if you have the back pain, who do you know that specializes in that? Now, they might go online and check you out for a minute, but that trust, that connection, that referral means so much. So that's the place that you absolutely want to start. And then you will never be able to scale unless you have a team in place. So your team is the most important asset. Speaking to hundreds and hundreds of practice owners and business owners, I can't tell you most of them view their team as their greatest asset. They view them as their greatest pain in the ass. a lot of times because they're...
You did too when you had that much of a turnover, right? But it is, I agree, it is an investment.
They caused all of my problems, and yet it's because of what I did and what I said. So I hired, I'd love to say I hired therapists who had a license and a pulse, and the pulse was optional. I mean, I really didn't care. I just wanted to make sure they had a license so I could bill.
Right.
You go in with that mentality, you're not going to get the highest level people because they're going to know better. So this idea of, well, what is your process in hiring? So one of the things that I learned how to do is I learned how to slow down my process. Hire slow, fire fast. I would hire too fast and I would fire too slow. I'd keep people that I know weren't the right fit, and they would cause all kinds of problems in my business. So really putting in not just a hiring process, but also getting clear on the type of person you want. You're not just looking for anyone. There's someone that shares in your values. There's someone that has certain characteristics and traits that just mesh with what you're about. Spend some time, it doesn't have to be a ton of time, but spend some time writing those out. What are some of the qualities you're looking for? And then you can move over to the skills. What are the basic skills or certifications that they want? What I've seen, and I did too, I only looked at their skill. How many years of experience do they have? What certifications do they have? What I ended up getting are people that did not buy into Schrier physical therapy and people that were trained by someone else that didn't have the same values I had. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I learned that the hard way. You hired people that were not aligned with you, and you tried everything you can, and you just created more frustration for you and for them. And then eventually I started to realize I needed to do some work, around hiring, onboarding, training, monitoring, making sure they were clear, what I call success metrics. Mm-hmm. Like, we're working together. We all want to be successful versus, well, I hired you, now go do the job. And then getting upset when they don't do it the way you think it should be done, but you didn't have any training.
Jay, this is where processes and procedures come into play, right? I mean, I have to give a flag for my love for processes, right?
Yeah.
That is that's how you create a consistency. That's how you create something that is measurable. That is how you create the agreement. So I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. It's the only way to do it. I mean, delegating without delegating to some type of process with the right person.
Right.
Give me a great person with no process over a great process with the wrong person. Right. But if you can put a really good person with a really solid process, you are now in a category of one because no one else has those two. And even with all the difficulties today with the hiring, the key is you can separate yourself when you get really, really clear on the type of person that works best for you. That means you have to do some work around your vision, your values, your mission, your origin story. People want to be connected with something bigger than themselves. Yes, to be paid fairly for sure, but above a certain amount of money, why should I work with you versus the person down the street? So we have to stop doing what I did, copy the ad of my competitor, which is what I really did when I started doing ads. I didn't know how to write an ad. I just copied one from the hospital system. Everyone's just copying each other. And the fact that there's AI out there now everyone's just using AI. When are you going to speak what you're about? When are you going to share with people authentic and deeply about, here's what I believe in? When I started to share what Schrier physical therapy was to me, why I started it, the type of person that's going to do well here and the type of person that won't, all of a sudden I magically started to attract amazing people who then I just said, what can I do to help you? And then my business started to grow. It had nothing to do with me, and yet everything to do with me. So that's where mindset comes into play with having tangible ways of doing things. When you're able to marry those two things, And remember, your mindset will always come first. Because someone can show you the right way. And I will tell you, there's people in my life that showed me the way, and I just wasn't ready to listen or learn.
Absolutely. Wow, Jamey, thank you so much for sharing that. That's definitely, it's from the heart and it's your experience, and I can see why you can help so many people. So if somebody is listening to you right now and they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, I mean, the first thing, if you have a business, the first thing to do is let's get clear on what's going on in your business. So you can just go to my website, practicefreedomu.com, and take the practice quiz. It's really short, takes 5 minutes, but it'll give you an idea of how it's like a self-scoring system, how you're scoring yourself around these different areas of business, maybe areas that you didn't think were like something like real. So there's 7 different areas of business. I ask some questions, and then I provide you some resources in each of these areas to help you. And of course, if it's something that you think we can help you with, then you can always schedule a call with me and we can talk more about what's going on and if or how we might be able to help. But that would be the first place to start.
Okay. And then you can also go to Amazon and get your book.
Yeah. If you want the book, you can go to Amazon. Actually, I have a free version on my website as well. It's a digital version that you can download just right away. If you want the paper version, then go to Amazon. The Practice Freedom Method. It has my story and a lot more in it. And then it has my journey of how I created a business that allowed me to take 137 days off a year, make, several $100,000, and then get the opportunity to go into this whole world of coaching and helping other people not go through some of the things I went through.
I think it's amazing. Very remarkable. So in closing, can you share a podcast or a book or a mentor that really inspired you? I know before the show you were talking to me about a podcast that you really like.
One of the early mentors that recently wrote a book with someone else is Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan owns a Strategic Coach, and I was a client for 10 years. So a lot of my early mindset shifts, and again, I didn't appreciate it as much as I could have, was through him and his program, and Lee Brower, which was my actual coach. He wrote a book with another gentleman who was in his program called Who Not How.
Right.
Who Not How is a really great book. It talks about delegation and how to always find the person that can help you versus doing it yourself. I kind of changed it and I make it Who Not You, because we always say, me. But I think that's a really great book. That's so many books that I refer to, but that's really one. Podcasts, I mean, there's so many out there. Obviously, your podcast. I can't think of one right now, but anyways, it may come to me later.
Yeah, I think you also mentioned Jimmy McKay, who has a podcast that you...
Yeah. Jimmy McKay is a buddy of mine. He has PT Pipecast. He has, I believe it's the largest podcast in the physical therapy space. But I think he had over 4 million downloads, but he has lots of different people, lots of different guests. I've been a guest on there. He's a good friend of mine doing some really great work and sharing some great things. So that's a great shout out.
Awesome. Yeah. I always like to share resources. And Jamey, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. And thank you so much for being so authentic and sharing your story that I'm sure will inspire so many others to do something, right? And not get to the point where you got to, but actually started their journey earlier. But you did. I mean, the important thing is that you actually did start on a new journey and now you are successful. So that's really what matters, right?
It's possible. I don't care what your circumstances are. It's possible. There's a ton of people who need what you do. There's infinitely more people who need what you do than do what you do. The only thing stopping you is truly you. So go out, get guidance, get help, and achieve the goals in the life that you want. We're waiting.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.